big news today. But the good news is it was much more hawkish than I expected. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. And a lot of things are happening in the market today. And we watched all of the Fed meeting in the United States. And we did this so that you don't have to watch it. And I have all the points lined up for you. People are getting crushed by inflation left, right, and center. And the number one question people are asking are, when on earth are these rates going to stop? When are they going to stop raising rates and punishing everybody because we can't afford it, right? And so they went through a very long meeting. They had a lot of questions and answers at the end. But I got some of the main points for you to drag. Now, you guys know that I live in Canada, but big J Powell down here in the United States, Jerome Powell, he actually is the most important person in finance on the planet. Now, because the United States have a special privileged position of being the reserve currency of the world, what they do, all the other countries actually respond to what they do about 6 weeks later, 4 weeks later, whatever the case may be. Actually, fun fact today, we actually got a fun little mention from him about the Bank of Canada and what we're doing up here in Canada. But what we want to know is, when are the rates going to stop? Now, the big headline is they raised rates another 0.25% today. So for you guys looking at purchasing power, understand that when they raise rates 1%, it drops home prices by 10. And it takes time for that to happen. And that's the lag effect. So by raising interest rates 0.25%, it means that your home value purchasing power drops by 2.5%. On $1 million property, you can look into a drop of around $25,000, something in that realm. Remember, they raised the interest rate by another 0.25% today, big headline, and they're going to continue their balance sheet reduction in that they're selling a lot of their mortgage-backed securities and a lot of other stuff that they have. They're selling stuff on the market instead of being a buyer of those things. Now, they do acknowledge the exact same thing. Jerome Powell and the entire meeting acknowledged that there's a lag effect, which is what I've been telling you about for a year now, that when they raise interest rates, it takes 12 to 18 months to actually feel the effects of those. So if you look at when the first interest rate happened 9 months ago, we're only halfway to feeling the effects of that. But when they raise the rate today again, now we have to reset that 18-month clock, 12 to 18 months, to see what happens. So there's this cumulative effect that's going to be happening. And this is what they call a lag. So they're continuing knowing that there's this lag. And when he mentioned Canada, he's mentioning that Canada has already signaled that there will be a pause and that they're not going to raise rates again the next time. Now, for the United States, they are thinking that more rates are going to be necessary, meaning they're going to raise rates again in March and again in May and then stop. So they call that a terminal rate. And we're expecting for the terminal rate, according to them, to be between 5.15 and 5.5, somewhere in that realm. So it really depends. They always say, depending on the information, depending on the information. Now, they say, though, this is important, it's likely to require low growth and more unemployment. Please understand what those two comments mean. What does it mean to have low growth? It means that companies got to go out of business. They're not going to have very good earnings, et cetera, et cetera. And what does stubbornly high employment mean? It means that there is no market working balance, according to them. Remember, one of their mandates is to preserve purchasing power of the dollar, which hasn't happened through inflation, and have maximum employment. But therein lies the problem. What is maximum employment? Does everybody work? Well, not really, right? They want to have a healthy amount of unemployment in the market, and they're saying we have to have more. But what does that mean? Think of your neighbors losing their jobs, companies going under. They can't afford to pay their mortgage. They can't afford to pay their car payment, so on and so forth. Remember, that is what's required. A lot of people have to lose their jobs. So they're expecting to see a lot more job losses, and they're expecting for that recession to continue as that lag continues to bite. Remember, as interest rates go up, it just costs people more money to live. But everybody has a different amount of savings in their bank account. So they're going to continue burning through their savings, continue to use credit card until they tip over that edge and they can't afford it. And you're going to see a lot of market capitulation when it comes to that. So those are some good points. They do believe that those increases will have to happen. Again, they reserve judgment, same as Bank of Canada. They say we're going to wait and see what happens. But remember, the U.S. starts it off. and then we have the other answers. So when we look at Canada 2 weeks ago, giving out their information, what they want, that's in response to the last US meeting that they had, right? So this is the new meeting. So everything kind of follows along with the US. So remember, they are saying that we are in the early stages of the correction. So whenever interest rates go up and up and up and up and up, there's three phases. Remember, when you throw a ball in the air, it's going up really fast, it pauses in the center, and then it falls. So the rates were going up at extreme rates, then you're seeing it going up a lot slower. Then we're going to see a pause. So we're already past the first stage. We're entering into the second stage before the third stage. And here comes the caution. If you were hoping for an interest rate drop, be careful what you're wishing for, because an interest rate drop means that you're hoping some cataclysmic event is going to happen. Just think back to what events would have had to happen for an interest rate to drop. In 2001, the whole world thought it was going to like crash apart, right? Really bad attacks, so on and so forth. Very, very bad. 2007, 8, 9, man, world GFC, it almost shut down the entire economy. Absolute nightmare when that happened. If we look into what happened in 2020, the whole world shut down. So when they drop rates to zero, it's because something terrible is going to happen. Now, they do always talk about we might reduce rates if we can. Remember, the government wants as much money as they can too, right? To be able to pay their bondholders and treasury holders. But they are going to raise the rates as high as they possibly can until something kind of breaks. And so they're going to keep those rates as high as long as the economy is doing okay. But if the economy dives off of a cliff, yeah, we'll probably see rates go down again, which he reflected in that meeting today, saying that they will continue to monitor it. And if the economy does go off a cliff, then they would reduce those rates. So again, the census is still that we're probably going to be around 5.25. The markets are building in a 4.9 terminal rate, which means that your mortgages will probably be, around 6.5 to 7%, depending on where you are. Remember that we do not have one number for everything. Although they do report on inflation being one number, inflation just means that things are more expensive. We don't have to get into the nitty gritty, but it doesn't mean that everything is getting more expensive. Maybe pencils and erasers and TVs are going down in price, but food is going up. Is it all food? Well, maybe lobster is going down in price and eggs are going up. We've all seen the eggs, right? So it all depends. But here is an interesting number that we saw from today's meeting. 56% of core inflation still has no inflation control. The prices of 56% of core inflation of those things are not deflating at all. They're not even having disinflation yet. So the prices of 56% of stuff are not correcting. The other 40 something percent is seeing prices decline now, but not the majority of it. So he says we're in the starting phase of these corrections, but you haven't seen anything yet. So when you're in a very big market like Toronto, New York, San Francisco, Vancouver, we're already seeing home prices down 20, 30%. I've been trying to tell people since last April, it's time to be selling those massive properties in those big cities, right? We just saw today a property that was on the market for $3 million and it just sold for $2 million, $1 million discount. So we're going to be seeing that more and more. The bigger they are, the harder they're going to fall. So remember that we're going to see this turning of all of the indexes going into disinflation that's going to come. Remember, this is an important thing that they did say. He said there is no light switch. There is zero light switch out there, meaning is not a day that you can foretell that August 22nd is the day that the inflation will be beat. But we can talk about a season. In North America here, we have 4 seasons, summer, spring, fall, it gets from cold to hot. But we know within those 90-day windows what is going to happen. It's probably going to get a lot colder, or it's going to get rainier or whatever. So this is easy to foresee what's going to happen as far as a season, but everybody is always looking for the day. And he keeps iterating that it is not a light switch. It's not on off. It's this gradual process. So it's good to hear him being bearish that we are in that disinflation, meaning things are slowing down, not getting cheaper. They're not just getting as expensive as fast. That's the difference between deflation and disinflation. Disinflation just means it's not getting as expensive as fast, but it's going to continue. So we're going to see some real interesting numbers coming up, but they are noticing a softening in labor. I really love how you use certain words, that what is that meaning, softening of labor? It means that not as many people are getting jobs or more people are getting laid off. And that, in their view, is a good thing because we're having trouble with wage spiral. So what is wage spiral? It just means that the cost of living is getting so high and people's salaries haven't changed that they're going to ask for a raise. And therein lies the problem. Because we don't live in a system where gold backs the dollar and we have confidence in that piece of paper because we have confidence in the dollar. Now, the piece of paper that you have, that little money that you have in your pocket, is only backed up by faith. And so this is where it comes down to the faith that we have in the currency is the bedrock of the economy. It's something that they're always looking at because you have to have faith in the dollar and you have to have faith that there will be no inflation. Just think about it for a second. If you knew for sure that bedspreads are going to go up 50% next year, you probably would go buy another one now. If it becomes, and this is the word, entrenched, if it becomes entrenched in your mind that systematically inflation is going to continue, you're going to start hoarding stuff, which is going to cause inflation to get even worse. And this is the difference when we have money that is different, like currency backed up by gold and silver or currency backed up by faith. Now, all of a sudden, when it's not backed up by anything, that faith cannot be shaken because the entire world economy is based on what this guy, Papa Powell over here, is going to decide to do, right? And of course, it's not just him. He's just the head of the Federal Reserve. He has to attend meetings and stuff, but he's the face of everything. So I think that's really, really important. And that bedrock belief of the expectation of inflation is the same in Canada, the euro, the Japanese, the Australian dollar, all of them all come back to that bedrock belief that inflation cannot continue. And so they keep saying that this has got to go on and on and on. But he makes several points staring straight into the camera that he does not expect inflation to get down to the point where they're going to cut rates this year. So when we look at the bond market and we look forward, we are seeing the bond market yields go down. And because of that, mortgage rates are coming down. And so as mortgage rates are coming down, now all of a sudden, everybody is rushing in because the rates today are better than it was 3-4 months ago. And now you have that number to see an uptick in mortgage demand. Now all of a sudden, everyone thinks that the market is going to do a lot better. And they're saying, well, do you see there's a huge spike in demand? That doesn't mean that a lot of people are going to buy homes right now. There is a massive disconnect today in prices, and I would call it a confused market because sellers do not want to back off their price for any reason. They're like, this is the price, take it or leave it. But what buyers are willing to buy, that price is so far below what they're asking. So we're seeing properties sitting on the market on average now for 40 days. Last year it was 3. We're seeing houses at 100, 200, 300 days on market. We're seeing prices that will not move off of that. So there will be a time that that market capitulation will come in. In Canada, the majority of mortgages are not like the States, 30-year fixed rates. In Canada, the majority of people are 5-year fixed or variable. So no matter what, everybody is going to have to go and redo their financing on their property. And slowly but surely, a couple $100,000 every single month are going to be getting into that trouble when they're not going to be getting lent the same amount on their property anymore. So we're going to see some real big things happening. So whatever happens in the US comes to Canada later. We're very, very linked, the two countries, but we have to pay attention to what happens in the US. So even though we're in Canada, this is the leading indicator that we always have to watch. And this is why I'm always telling you, don't drive a car looking in the rear view mirror, always looking back. This is what sellers do. Well, I saw a home sell for this price 2 months ago, so that's how much I want for my home. We have to be looking forward when we're looking at velocity of money or money supply growth, or what the US Federal Reserve is saying for rates, or we have to keep on looking forward in different indexes that is showing what's going to happen in the future. So what I encourage you to do is talk to any mortgage broker that is out there, any bank that is lending money, and find out what the lending standards are. Because if you work in that field, you're going to notice that we're getting crunch, and they're lending less and less money out to the public. So big news today. But the good news is it was much more hawkish than I expected. Like, the economy is doing way better than what they expected. So that is a good thing, but it's also gives them more fuel to raise those rates a couple more times and maybe end up at that terminal rate where they're thinking at 5.25. But they reserve the right to raise it even farther than that if it's not seeing what they want. Remember, only half the things are showing that disinflation. They are not getting it on the other half yet, acknowledging that home services take a bit longer for that. Anyway, you guys, I think that's fascinating news. That's what's happening today. The economy is doing better than they expected, but I think that the lag effect is still going to be coming to bite. And so I'm looking forward to Q3. There should be some big fireworks this year. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for coming by. If I gave you any value, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll talk to you on the next video. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you like that video, you might like this one, and maybe something like that.